Amber Gautreaux. I teach at Raceland Middle School in Lafourche Parish. As an educator, I think I'm most passionate about students being able to communicate with each other effectively. If they can talk about math, that's awesome. But just overall having understanding of how to socialize with each other and being able to communicate their problems and their issues effectively with one another. In my classroom, we do a lot of group and partner work, talking and discussing things and working through problems. And I feel like that helps them throughout life as well, to be able to work through issues and know how to effectively communicate their problems and what they need with other people. This video is going to be a 6th grade math lesson. I teach the curriculum Eureka Squared. We are going to be doing a lesson on exponents. They are going to be able to evaluate numerical expressions written in exponential form. The previous lesson, they had a brief introduction into exponents and were able to understand what the base and the exponent meant and how to write that in expanded form. Today we're going to be focusing on solving those problems. This will help them with orders of operation to be able to be successful when we move into those problems in the next few lessons that have multiple different operations for them to solve. I do have a para in my classroom that will be in the video. She is in my room because a fourth of my class is either 504 EL or 1508. It's a very diverse group of learners. I have students from unset all the way to mastery in this classroom combined. Just because it is such a diverse group of learners, I do like to use a lot of group and partner work, having them discuss and work together when we are working problems out.
12. Very good. So today we are going to add on to what we talked about yesterday. We had already talked about addition and subtraction, how we solve those problems from left to right. And we had talked about multiplication and division when we have problems with just multiplication and division, how we solve from left to right. Yesterday we started to bring in exponents, and we talked about exponents in exponential notation and what that really meant and how it looked in expanded form. We talked about how we had a base, and that exponent told us how many times we were going to multiply that base. And when we read it, we called it a power. So we said 10 to the 5th power, our power of 5. So today we're going to take it a little bit further. By the end of today, we want to know, how do we evaluate numerical expressions that are written in exponential form? So when we look at evaluate, what does evaluate mean we're going to do? Yeah, we're going to solve problems. So today we're going to solve problems with that exponential form or notation. And when we hear exponential form or notation, what does that mean? It's written with a exponent. So we're just going to be looking at problems today written with exponents. We're going to be writing it in expanded form and now taking it a step further and solving it. So I can evaluate numerical expressions written in exponential form. Remember, your cell phone should be off in your school bag. There's no talking when the red lights are on, and we should not be sleeping. You can go ahead and reach inside your folder and grab your fluency for today. In our book on page 41, make sure your book is open to page 41. Pick up your fluency and open your books to page 41. You will need one sheet of paper from the middle of your table. So make sure you grab that paper once you're on page 41. All right, so everybody should have one sheet of paper from the middle of their table. We're going to start with our paper in front of us. Landscape across like this. Landscape, not portrait. We want to be in landscape like this across. So hold the paper like this in front of you. What we're going to do is we're going to fold this sheet of paper. So what we're going to do is a hamburger fold. We're going to fold from left to right or right to left and make one fold in our paper. One fold in our paper. Here to here. All right, now let's take a look at this. Open it up. We just made how many folds in this paper? One fold. We folded it only one time. But how many sections, Talon, do we have now? We have what? 2 sections. So let's write that in our chart. We made one fold and we have 2 sections. Now, if we fold it back, this is one fold. Now we're going to make another fold. So from here, you looking? From here, we are going to fold one more time. Now, when we fold this one more time, how many times have we now folded the paper? Twice, 2 times. And let's open it up. And we want to know how many sections do we now see on this paper? How many sections do we now have on our paper? 4. So let's write it in our chart. Now you and your group are going to continue making folds, one fold at a time, and counting the sections. So everybody should be here. And we are already at 2 folds. Now from here, stop and listen. You and your group are going to make another fold. Tell me what number we're at. And then you will count the sections and tell me how many sections you have now made. Then you're going to go again and fold again. Tell me the number of sections. And then your last fold, tell me the number of sections. I'm going to give you and your group 2 minutes to make your folds and count your sections. So you and your group have 2 minutes. Go ahead. The number that we multiplied over and over again was 2. And when we started, we only had one group of that 2. So our exponent is 1. How do I read this in exponential notation? Everybody. 2 to the power of 1, or 2 to the first one. Instead of saying 2 to the power of 3, how else might I read this one? What else might I say? Ainsley? Cubed. Very good. 2 cubed. All right. So now let's go ahead and look at some problems we can solve and evaluate. So we're going to start at number 2 at the bottom. So yesterday we worked on reading the expression with the exponent, and then we talked about writing it in expanded form. Today we're going to take it a step further and solve it. So let's look at the expression for number 2. How would I read that number? How would I read that number? Jayla? 4 to the power of 3. How else can I read that number? 4 cubed. Great job. Now, 4 to the power of 3 or 4 cubed means what? If I were to put it in expanded form, how would I show this in expanded form, Ryder? Okay, so let's think about that. You said 4 plus 4 plus 4. But exponents are repeated what? So how would I show it? Very good. 4 times 4 times 4. Everybody write it on that paper. Now, yesterday when we did prime factorization, when we talked about going in prime factorization and then writing it and consolidating it as exponents, we started off with a product, and then we took out the factors. So our tree got wider. Today, we're going to be writing the factors and then multiplying them together to get the product at the end. So our tree is going to look backwards and get smaller as we go down. So we're going to start with doing 4 times 4. You have a calculator if you need to use it. Go ahead and solve that part. 4 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. And we have to make sure we're getting 1. So my final answer is just 1. I don't even have to work that one out. Now I want to take a look at one that deals with fractions. It is still with an exponent. So we're still following the same steps, except now we have fractions that we are going to be repeatedly multiplying. Who can read me the expression for number 6? Who can read me this expression for number 6? Jolie? 2/3 to the power of 4. Who can tell me what that means we're going to be doing when we write it out in expanded form? What does that mean we're going to be doing? Tiana, what does that mean we're going to be doing? Very good. We're going to be multiplying 2/3 4 times. So let's write it out in expanded form. 2/3 times 2/3 times 2/3 times 2/3. So 2/3 is my base. That's the number that is being repeatedly multiplied. 4 was my exponent. So it told me I'm going to be multiplying 2/3 4 times. Now, when we look at this, we're going to start by combining 2/3 times 2/3 right here. So we need to figure out 2/3 times 2/3. Go ahead and write it underneath. 2/3 times 2/3. That's the one y'all were working on. All right, so that means 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. Now from here, I'm going to start by multiplying 1/2 times 1/2. What I noticed some people doing was adding their denominators instead of multiplying their denominators. So make sure we're checking over ourselves in our work. So when I multiply 1/2 times 1/2, what do I get? 1/4. Now, if 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4, very good. All right, so our question today was, how do we evaluate numerical expressions that are written in exponential form? So when we see it in exponential form, what's the first thing we should do? We're going to take that exponential form and write it how? How are we going to write it? Say it louder. In expanded form. What does expanded form mean when we talk about exponents? It's going to be what? Repeated multiplication. So we're going to take the problem and write it in repeated multiplication. All right. So you can turn to your exit ticket, page 45. Write your name on your exit ticket. You are doing the first 2 problems on your exit ticket and then putting it in the middle of your table for me to check. So first 2 problems on your exit ticket and then putting it in the middle of your table for me to check. You got 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Overall, today's lesson was successful. There was a few careless mistakes. Students were still adding instead of multiplying. They were able to write it out in expanded form as repeated multiplication, but then when they came to evaluating and solving it, they did addition instead of multiplication. With more practice, they'll be able to work out those problems and be able to get them correctly, and be more accurate in solving those problems. When we did our exit ticket, I had 1 or 2 people that were still making that mistake. So we went ahead and went over that, and I had them redo their exit ticket to correct that. Overall, though, most of my students were able to complete their exit ticket without any help. I only had 2 that I had to go back and help. As we continue on throughout this week, tomorrow, we're going to start to put everything together as far as all the operations we did. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and exponents are all going to be in an expression for them to solve together. So we'll see how tomorrow goes.